In a small village on the edge of a dense, isolated forest in northern Europe, there stood an old house known as the Dark House. The house was built of dark gray stone, with broken windows and cracked doors. The surrounding forest was so thick that sunlight barely penetrated, giving the place a gloomy atmosphere even during the day. The locals avoided the house, telling stories of ghosts and evil creatures that haunted it. But, as always, there were those who wanted to uncover the truth. On a cold autumn night, 4 friends, Jake, Emma, Mike, and Laura, decided to explore the house after hearing about its mysterious secrets. They believed the terrifying stories were just myths meant to scare people away. They decided to visit the house at midnight, thinking the darkness would make the adventure more thrilling. At the house, they all felt a strange chill run through their bodies, despite wearing heavy coats. The front door was slightly ajar, as if inviting them in. Jake stepped forward first, holding a flashlight. The first room was covered in dust. The ceiling was crumbling, and the walls were adorned with old paintings of strange faces that seemed to follow them with their gaze. As they ventured deeper into the house, they began to hear faint sounds, like whispers coming from every direction. Emma, who was the most frightened, tried to convince the others to turn back, but Mike insisted on continuing. "It's just the wind. Don't be scared," he said, trying to reassure her. When they reached the upper floor, they found a room locked with a rusty key. They decided to open it, and when they did, they were shocked by what they saw. The room was filled with broken old dolls, their glass eyes seemingly staring at them. In the center of the room was a large mirror covered with a black cloth. Laura felt a strange urge to uncover the mirror, despite the others' warnings. When she pulled off of the cloth, she saw her reflection in the mirror, but something was off. The reflection was smiling at her, but she wasn't smiling in real life. Suddenly, the mirror began to crack, and a sinister laugh echoed from within. The ground beneath them shook, and the dolls began to move on their own. The whispers turned into loud screams, and the air became as cold as ice. The friends ran toward the door, but the house began to change around them. The hallway stretched longer, and the walls seemed to bleed. No matter how fast they ran, they kept returning to the same room with the mirror. Finally, they reached the main door, but it was tightly shut. Then, long shadows began to move toward them, and they heard a voice say, "You will never leave." At that moment, Jake's flashlight went out, and they were plunged into complete darkness. They tried to scream, but their voices seemed to disappear into the void. Suddenly, Emma felt a cold hand touch her shoulder, and when she turned around, she saw a pale face smiling at her in the dark. She screamed, but no one could hear her. After hours of terror, they finally found a way out, but they weren't alone. When they reached the outside of the house, they turned around to see the shadows following them. They ran as fast as they could to their car, only to find the tires slashed. They had to walk through the dark forest to get back to the village. As they walked, they began to hear footsteps behind them. The faster they walked, the closer the footsteps became. Suddenly, they heard a voice whispering their names. Jake, Emma, Mike, Laura. The voice came from every direction. When they turned around, they saw a tall shadow standing behind them, its eyes glowing red. They ran as fast as they could until they reached the village, but when they looked back, there was no one there. They were all terrified, but they decided never to speak of what happened. A few days later, strange things began happening to them. They saw shadows moving in their homes and heard whispers at night. Emma was the most affected. She started seeing the pale face she had seen in the house everywhere she went. Eventually, Emma disappeared without a trace, and she was never found. Weeks later, the bodies of Jake, Mike, and Laura were discovered in the forest near the old house. Their faces were frozen in expressions of terror, and no one could explain what had happened. The old house remained as it was, waiting for its next victims.